First rodeo I went out there, didn't go too well. I got my hand stepped on, it was all swollen and purple.
The smell of dust, hay, and animals triggers a whirlwind of worry every time Joel Bañuelos crosses the freshly groomed arena at the edge of Oakdale's city limits.
I'm a short kid. I'm challenged a little bit.
But his size, his experience, and his fears, that's all in the back of his mind.
One of them suckers, the one up front I've gotten on, he dragged me across this fence pretty nice.
Ahead of him is an animal several times his size, and a legacy older than he can remember.
My grandpa did it, my dad did it, my stepdad did it. So it was kind of following it along. They kind of threw the idea at me. I was like, well, heck, let's try it.
There's few things in life more important to 13-year-old Joel Bañuelos than his name.
What I mean by the name is like the last name, like I'm carrying on the Bañuelos blood. You know, my grandpa was a very successful Mexican rodeo star. He was very well known. So was my dad.
From the back of a bucking bronc in Zacatecas, Mexico, is where the Bañuelos rodeo legacy first started. Joel's grandfather, Antonio Bañuelos, better known as Don Toño, was a master in charreria, a traditional form of Mexican rodeo. Don Toño would eventually migrate to California and pass his love for the sport to Joel's father, Joel Sr., and then to Joel himself.
To be completely honest with you, I'm kind of psycho in the head, so I was just like, hey, let's try this out.
Here come. And try he did. At the age of just 9 years old, he climbed onto his first calf.
I just nodded my head and they let it out and I just flew.
Joel left with an injured hand and a bruised ego, but he learned one of the most important lessons in rodeo. Get back on.
My mom was like, oh, for sure, he doesn't want to do this anymore. I went up to her after they checked my arm and everything. I was like, can I do it again?
Not the answer I wanted to hear, but okay, we'll try it again.
In 2017, Joel's mom would go on to watch him win the Northern California Calf Riding Finals. Then in 2018, the Clements Junior Stampede Calf Riding Championships, and in 2021, 3 different steer riding championships.
It's in his heart, and it's in his blood.
With the family's charreria legacy coursing through his veins and some help from his stepfather, Joel qualified for the Mini Bowl World Finals in Reno, where he'll represent the U.S. and Mexico this November.
Being Hispanic, being from Zacatecas, I think it's for him and just to show the Hispanic world that, hey, anything is possible.
From the dusty bull riding arena in Oakdale, I'm John Bartel.
We are badass. I've been cruising since I was 15 years old, and I'm still going.
That's Elisa Trevino, the founder of Chicana's Car Club.
Chicana it's a California Mexican. That's what you are. I was born in San Jose, raised here in Merced. When you think Chicana, you think, California. Cars, lowriders in general, that is our culture. The Chicano people and Chicanas, they started that. I was a female lowrider driver, and I just thought it would be really cool to have a women's car club. Why not? I mean, there's so many men out there doing the same thing. Why not have a woman?
Elisa started Chicanas in Merced, and it has since branched out to Modesto and East Bay.
It's now more than what I've expected, more than we've expected.
These women are out here for their love of cars.
Everything inside is all original. I've always loved Bel Airs and Impalas too.
Everybody kind of usually has a name for their car, and one day I was listening to oldie song, Crystal Blue Persuasion. I was like, see, there it is.
Her name is La Baby.
I have a 350 engine. It's pretty.
And there's something else that drew them in.
It's women empowering women.
Taking this and breaking the glass ceiling.
A lowrider culture has always been a man's culture, and we were the wives or the girlfriends or whatever we were, helping, clean the cars, getting the kids ready for shows. It was always family oriented, but now it's women are right here, and we're coming out strong, stronger than ever.
But we get a lot of head turns, and when they turn their head, they think they'll see a guy, but eventually it's us girls.
I'm sorry, men out there, but it's no longer a man's world anymore.
These women are taking over the streets.
To the ladies out there, I can just tell you, if you have a car, whatever your passion is, get it going, because the sky is the limit. Like I've said, you can do whatever you put your mind to.
As almond and olive harvest season comes to an end in Yolo County, there's one crop that recently just went to flower.
This is how you know that
it's time for harvest.
Right now, there's no mechanical harvesting machine in California that can easily process this plant.
Labor, yeah, because it's hard. It's only physical work.
A sharp edge and brute strength. That's how Raul Chavez gets the job done.
There you go.
This is California-grown agave, the same plant used to make tequila, and tequila's more refined cousin, mezcal. It's one of the first successful crops of its kind in the Golden State, a crop that takes 7 years to mature.
You can, see? You can taste that one. You can eat that one.
I wouldn't say it's exactly tasty, but
you
it's
can
edible.
taste that one.
Around here, Chavez is known as Repo because of the white cabbage-colored hair he once had as a kid.
Look, almost white, but not that color.
Repo comes from a long line of humidors, or agave harvesters. At just 10 years old, he was cutting agave with his brother in Tenaya, a small town in the Mexican state of Jalisco, well known for its agave crops.
It's, I think so, like 80% the people he put it agave over there. Oh, it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful production over there.
Unlike in Tenaya, agave is more of an experimental crop in Yolo County. An experiment that hobby farmer Craig Reynolds hopes will be one solution to California's never-ending struggle with water and farming.
Agaves like water, but they don't really need a whole lot. So you can be growing agave with 1/10 or less the water you'd be growing other cash crops.
Commercially grown California agave has been a long-time dream for Craig. After retiring from his job at the state legislator's office, Craig decided to see if the drought-tolerant plant would grow in Yolo County.
One of the beauties of having an agave industry in California is that we already have a workforce and a knowledge base and expertise of folks from Mexico.
Folks like Repo, who helped Craig plant several hundred experimental plants. Then a few years later, Repo himself planted his own agave plot.
It turned out that it was actually a very viable project and that we made some excellent agave spirits.
Agave spirits. That's the name that any distiller in the United States must use when producing alcohol from agave.
Can't call it tequila because it's not grown in the special 5-state region of tequila, and I can't call it mezcal because it's not grown in that 12-state region.
It may not be called tequila or mezcal, but Craig and Repo proved that they could make agave spirits the traditional way in a wood fire pit.
Put the fire is ready, put it inside, cover, and leave it like five days.
Heating the agave is the only way to extract the sugar needed for the fermentation and alcohol distillation process.
Transform all these balls, you can make a happy hour. A lot of people.
And a lot of people are enjoying California agave spirits. Thanks to Craig's California agave dream and Repo's Mexican agave experience, a movement is underway. A movement Craig calls Mez California.
That's basically the concept of having a mezcal grown in California.
The Mez California movement is taking off. Craig has already distributed starter plants to a number of farmers across the state. And Repo, well, he's expanding his own agave crop, carrying on his Mexican agave roots.
When I go to my town, a lot of people, hey, you have the mezcal over there? Yeah, a little bit. Start.
From the agave fields in Yolo County, I'm John Bartel.
There's a lot of that history that's not told.
The Civil Rights Movement was a push for racial justice and equality for Black people in the 50s and 60s, but another fight also emerged.
There's other peoples here that have been oppressed.
Through the Chicano movement, or El Movimiento, people of Mexican descent struggled for equality.
The Chicano movement emerged in 1965 when Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta launched their great boycott through the United Farm Workers Union.
The union joined Filipino farm workers in the Delano grape strike.
They wanted to have basic rights for the workers, such as bathroom breaks, lunch, an 8-hour workday, and to have a living wage.
In 1966, Cesar Chavez led a historic 340-mile march from Delano to Sacramento for justice in the fields.
There was also a student movement that wanted to bring Chicana and Chicano studies to high school campuses.
Outside of protests and marches, art also played a role in spreading key messages and unionizing communities.
Sacramento had a very rich Chicano arts movement, and I'm thinking here of the Royal Chicano Air Force.
The Royal Chicano Air Force was an artistic collective established back in the 70s in Sacramento to help push for social change through prints, murals, and photography.
We still retain our legacy as a major contributor to the Chicano movement.
At the same time, Sacramento's Latino Center of Art and Culture served as a hub for artists. It was originally founded as La Raza Bookstore, meaning the People's Bookstore.
Chicano students who were also artist activists became also engaged in the bookstore, and they created a gallery. And the whole site became a site for public gatherings, and a lot of our artists came from those families. They were migrant families.
My parents and their parents worked heavily in the fields of California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas.
Dominic Borges is a community artist and activist with deep roots in the movement.
My family has been involved with the Chicano art movement really since the 60s. My father was a media person working with Cesar Chavez. My earliest recollection of being involved in the Chicano movement was attending huge marches with the United Farm Workers, often marching alongside Cesar Chavez. Playing a part in politics is an important part of being Chicano in Sacramento. It's important to be involved within your community because this is your voice.
People dreamt big, and they made it happen.
We are proud of our mestizo heritage. We are proud of our farm worker heritage. We are proud of the contributions our community has made. So we took on the word Chicano to signify that we are an active community, that we have an identity and a purpose that is clear, that we wanted to bring this understanding of our history, of our cultural legacy, of our contributions to Sacramento.
Like any other crew working for the U.S. Forest Service, these wildland firefighters line out in yellow and green, but they also go by another name.
In Spanish, trabajo de bomberos, workers of fire.
They're Mexican nationals, hired by a contractor and trained in the U.S. to work jobs like this one on the Dixie Fire.
I mean, you could be a store worker, a gas attendant, you could be a teacher.
Their crew boss, David Buenos Diaz, who came here from San Diego, has been a firefighter since he was just 18.
I've been doing it now 22 years.
Though wildland firefighting can be dangerous and difficult work, Diaz says the bomberos come from all over Mexico for opportunity.
People coming from Mexico, you know, it's the same as everybody. Everybody wants to make a good living. Everybody wants to eat well, feed our families, take care of our families, and this is why we're out here.
21-year-old Sergio Correa Blanco is one of the youngest faces in his crew, leaving behind his brothers and sister waiting for him in his hometown of Morelia.
Porque hay muchas más posibilidades de generar dinero.
With wildfire conditions in California growing ever more extreme, crews like this one are being utilized more often to mop up at the tail of the fire, which frees up specialized crews to attack at the head of the fire.
En la parte de combatir los incendios, trabajamos en trabajos diferentes de reforestar.
Ubaldo Vargas is the other crew boss who came from Medford, Oregon.
Para las personas que vienen de México, pues siempre tienen un sueño, venir a trabajar fuerte y ayudar a sus familias.
The bomberos who work in the U.S. can expect to make far more money here than they might back home. There's also a sense of brotherhood, accomplishment, and pride.
My dad's a firefighter. I'm proud of him. He works hard every day.
Especially for their loved ones back home.
It was kind of a happy accident. I just took a job and ended up falling in love with something that I wasn't really exposed to before.
Chris Rivera is the owner of Cesar Wine.
My parents are from Michoacan, Mexico. They immigrated here, worked here, became naturalized citizens eventually, and that's when I was born in Modesto, California.
He worked in the industry for a number of years, learning all aspects of the business. He says he knows historically Latinos aren't thought of as opting into the wine industry, but
I think if you're talking from like amount of people that put hands on these, like from grapes all the way to bottle, Latinos are probably outnumbering everybody else 20-1, right? Our cuisine is world-renowned, so we know taste, textures, and flavors. Now we can just translate to that to what we prefer as beverages, and wine can be a big part of that.
Susana Rodriguez Vasquez is the winemaker at Peltier Winery. She explained why she chose the business.
Winemaking for me is my passion. I love every vintage is different. It is so much to learn.
She explained where it started.
I was in love with agriculture, so I graduated from University of San Simon in Cochabamba, Bolivia.
She came to the U.S. in 2005 as an exchange student and got her first job in the wine industry 1 year later.
Coming here to the United States and trying to get in the industry, I think one, as a Latina, and two, as a female in a mostly dominated by male industry, it wasn't easy. It was a challenge, and I was happy to take it. I think that's one of the things that we Latinos we have.
She explained why she's in Lodi.
I love how friendly the industry is here, and, you know, I honestly love this region.
I carry my heritage on my sleeve. I love talking about my country. I am so involved in it.
Joseph Smith came to California from Belize in 1996. He's been a winemaker with Clinker Brick in Lodi for 15 years, and he's creating a cross-culture dialogue.
The change I have seen is the amount of wineries that's popped up and the different ethnicity of winemakers in these wineries now. It's becoming so diverse that, I mean, it makes me happy.
Smith knows some people of color from historically underrepresented groups can be intimidated by the whiteness of wine culture and may have a hard time seeing themselves in it.
You've given us this platform to talk about it and showcasing it. I think that's what's going to make people comfortable, make people want to get out there and say, you know what, I'm a part of that too. I can be a part of that too.
You are who you are. Be proud of it. Be proud about it, and that's where I am. I am proud about where we came from and what we have now and what we are showing, you know, with our final products.
Gerardo Espinoza is the owner of Anaya Wines. His family is originally from Mexico.
I'm a third-generation farmer. My family, my grandfather came here in the 1940s.
Espinoza's grandfather bought land over the years, and his relatives planted grapes. He says that history is what he tries to put into his product. He too knows about the perception the industry has.
The majority of the front image, it's Caucasians or white, but I think when you see the background or the backstage, it's the opposite. Majority are Hispanics, majority are from different parts of the world, and I think that's what the winery is. You know, if it wasn't for them, there would be no front image.
You don't have to look a certain way, be a certain way, have a certain height, have a certain color.
More than 60 million Hispanics and Latinos live in the U.S., and they're not all the same, from their skin color, language ability, and mixed race heritage.
I definitely identify as Mexican American. And when people try to tell me, like, this is your culture, you need to look at Aztec dancers every day, I'm just like, I'd never experienced that growing up.
I think I identify very strongly with my Black community in Bolivia.
More than 15 million Hispanics and Latinos call California home, but since most of them have a Mexican background, Afro-Latinos and indigenous people are often forgotten.
If you are Black, you are always at the bottom of the society. Other Blacks are living in other communities, and they're still facing the same issues that people are facing here, our brothers and sisters. So educating about diversity is very important, not only what we have inside our country, but the people that are coming to our country.
My parents were Salvadorian immigrants, so they were the first generation, and then I'm the child of immigrants. They really wanted me to speak really great English.
Spanish is the most dominant language in the U.S. after English, with more than 40 million people using Spanish at home. But not all Hispanics or Latinos speak the Romance language.
As someone with parents who are Central American, who are primary Spanish speakers. And the experiences that I've had as a bilingual individual kind of growing up in the 90s in America, those are both equally powerful and both define a little bit of who I am.
I don't like people making assumptions or like speaking Spanish to me just because I look like I speak Spanish. Yes, I do speak actually Spanish, English, and Italian. There's 33 Latin American countries. Out of those 33 Latin American countries, only 60% speak Spanish.
Spanish is my first language, but what if you are a black Latino or black Caribbean who's coming from Haiti, for example, right? So you will speak French or Creole.
Within the community, there's a lot of diversity. My culture is, it's as much like video games and Marvel movies as it is pupusas and the traditional textiles that I grew up seeing in my household. And it's, you know, it's a hodgepodge.
My culture in Mexico is basically family, food, and not even music. You know, it was really, really different than your typical Mexican. I had a lot of pushback from my fellow, you know, people that were from Mexico. They were like, you know, they treated me differently, they saw me differently. So I didn't really feel accepted.
For me, growing up in a house where we eat rice, plantains, chicken, was my culture. I'm that black Bolivian who moved to the US and now is trying to accommodate his life in the mainstream of life in the US.
I think Hispanic is more than a person's skin tone. I think it's a person's experience navigating the systems and navigating the world that we live in.
Behind a home in a quiet country corner of Lodi, a surprising grove of 300 olive trees in a region iconically known for its wine grapes.
We had cherry trees and we would harvest those for a few years, and you know, we just weren't really producing. They were old trees when we bought the property. And then one of our friends, after we pulled the trees out, he said, hey, I have these trees, this family, they don't want them. It's Arbequina. And we said, you know what, let's just do it.
So Yolanda Vera, a health insurance agent by trade, did. That was 10 years ago. The Arbequina olives soon grew into an olive oil business called Oleo Verdad.
Verdad, V-E-R-D-A-D, means truth. So, I mean, it is true olive oil.
Harvest takes place in November for about 2 days, and within 24 hours, the olives are pressed. 2 months later, once any sediment is removed, it becomes this, extra virgin olive oil.
And then what you'll get is they call Oleo Nuevo. And the Oleo Nuevo is the neon green olive oil. And that is like the freshest, grassiest taste. I love it.
It has become a family affair to make it all happen. Frank is an HVAC vocational instructor turned olive oil entrepreneurial husband.
But yeah, I never thought it'd come to this. You know, it's like a hobby for us, you know.
Zach is one of 3 sons, along with a daughter-in-law that also pitches in to make the business grow.
Jack of all trades, because, I mean, we're out here, we help with the drip lines and harvest.
So with the olive oil, there's so many things you can do. I actually made some pumpkin bread, but I would say the best is have your bread, dip it in the olive oil, and put a little bit of our balsamic.
And if that's not enough, the Vera family has come up with their own line of olive-infused soaps called the Lodi Soap Company. So where do they go from here? Right now, their products are sold on their website, as well as at the Lodi Farmers Market, Lodi Street Fair, and other charity and fundraising events, where they give away their time and products to worthy causes. But more than anything, they're proud of their Hispanic roots, as well as their olive roots and heritage.
It means a lot. It means that, you know, we're all the same, we're all people, we can all do it.
A 916 favorite, chances are you've taken a bite out of Chando's Tacos. Simply delicious with love from Sacramento.
You're not gonna be on a diet here. You can't.
Sharing lunch with owner Lisandro Chando Madrigal.
No diet.
You learn the origin story goes beyond catering at backyard parties around Sacramento.
At that point, I had already created an identity, knew who Chando's was, knew what product I was going to serve, and who I was going to serve to. We were migrant farm workers growing up.
Madrigal wears his story on his sleeve.
And it says, mi querido viejo. It's a saying and a song from my beloved old man.
His father, Hilario, first came to America from Michoacan as a bracero through a labor program between the U.S. and Mexico. Later, in the 60s, his parents returned to the States as undocumented immigrants. They were since naturalized.
They're our heroes. I mean, they left their native country in search of a better life, in search of that American dream.
Madrigal has fond childhood memories following crop harvests around the country. He says beyond picking fruits, he picked up life lessons that would help him build Chando's.
I learned how to be a hard worker. I learned how to appreciate people that work with you. I appreciate people in general, take care of them, respect them, and learn not to give up.
In his 20s, after the birth of his first son, he went from working apple orchards to Apple, the giant tech company. That's where he said he worked for 10 years and picked up marketing skills. But when his father passed away in 2007, Madrigal felt a calling to return to the taste of home.
Our first actual brick and mortar location was opened in June of 2010.
Now, with 7 locations in the region and an expansion into Atlanta, Chando's employs a predominantly Hispanic workforce of more than 200.
I'm really proud that we're actually creating careers now.
From humble beginnings, his family now building an enterprise, one taco at a time.
Change is what she wanted, change is what she preached, and change is what Dolores Huerta helped inspire a nation of farm laborers stand up for.
Farm workers who are doing the most essential work of feeding everybody, they were so discriminated in the fields that they were not even provided bathrooms in the fields.
In 1962, Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez founded the National Farm Workers Association. Since then, a track record of change followed. In her youth, strikes, boycotts, and lobbying helped create labor contracts, safer working conditions, and health care for agriculture workers.
If we're going to have a true democracy, everybody has to participate. You know, you just can't have a few people making the rules, making the laws.
The 1960s was a time of change, and although Cesar Chavez received a majority of the attention, Huerta played an equal part in the labor and civil rights movement. The role of men and women were different back then, but looking back, Huerta says that she would have liked to share more of the speaking responsibilities.
We have thousands of people that really created the movement, and I think I probably have gotten more recognition, but I do agree that I think as women, we probably need to not stand back, but stand up.
At the age of 91, her activism, her passionate energy, and her voice towards civil rights has not faded. Today, she's the president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation, a nonprofit in Bakersfield that focuses on equality, health and safety, and education through a program called Vecinos Unidos, or Neighbors United. The foundation works to unite parents, teachers, and students in the classroom.
Children are not born racist. They're not born homophobic. They're not born misogynist. Though we have to start teaching children all of these things right at the elementary school level.
These days, Huerta's activism is not just limited to labor discrimination and racism. She's also taking on issues like climate change.
We have a drought, we have forest fires, we've had floods, and of course this is happening all over the world, not just here in the United States. So we know that this is something that we have to address.
Education is very important to Huerta. As a mother of 11, she made sure all of her children were educated about the movements she was involved in. And to much joy, she's proud to have her daughter, Camilla, follow in her footsteps as the executive director of the foundation.
It's such a pleasure to be able to work with young people
We are an intergenerational organization. We are an organization run by women of color.
Huerta coined the phrase "Si se puede," yes we can. It's a mantra that helped inspire a long line of change.
Yes, we did. Yes, we can.
And it's a mantra that Huerta hopes will continue to inspire change.
And then talk to each other, you know. Let's all work hard to get rid of the racism, the misogyny, the homophobia in our society, and the ignorance, okay? We can all capture that and say it's the ignorance.
Talking with the great labor and civil rights activist Dolores Huerta in Bakersfield, I'm John Bartel. This is Cesar E. Chavez National Monument in Keene, California, the burial site of Cesar Chavez and his wife Helen Chavez.
He says, "It is my deepest belief that only by giving our lives do we find true life."
When Paul Chavez looks back at the life his father Cesar Chavez gave to farm workers, he's reminded of the simple reason his dad got into activism.
He says, "I'm angry. I'm angry at the way our family was treated and lots of other families were treated." He says, "You know, I have a score to settle."
As the son of Mexican-American migrant farm laborers, Cesar Chavez grew up in a life of poverty. And at a young age, Cesar learned that people who worked in the fields didn't have the same rights as everyone else.
They weren't given the right to bargain. They were excluded from Social Security. There was no unemployment insurance.
After serving time in the military, Cesar got married and got back into farm work. Fed up with the way that workers were treated, Chavez became a grassroots labor rights activist.
You know, he always talked about nonviolence being more powerful than violence.
Before it was a national monument, Chavez and the National Farm Workers of America would meet here on this sliver of land in Keene, California. Chavez called it La Paz.
And this was that place that he could bring workers from all over and give them the skills and the inspiration.
Chavez died in 1993 at the age of 66, but as you walk down the halls of the National Monument, you'll see the results of his inspiration. Images of hunger strikes, his marching, his connection to Bobby Kennedy, Dolores Huerta, and, of course, you'll also experience current-day inspirations.
It was important for us because what it did was it took him from being just a hero of farm workers and Latinos to being a central part of America's history.
From Cesar E. Chavez National Monument in Keene, California, I'm John Bartel. Hope to see you on the back road.